Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Dafuq Did I Just Watch? With your host, as always, Kyle McLemore. This week we'll be recapping and reviewing the 2022 film, Elvis. Starring Austin Butler as the title character and co-starring Tom Hanks as Colonel Tom Parker. Directed and written by Baz Luhrmann, who you may know from Moulin Rouge and also the latest version of The Great Gatsby. Before we get too far, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you comment any movies or television shows you'd like us to review here at Dafuq. Now, if you'd still like to see Elvis and haven't had the chance to, please pause now and return later, as there may be several spoilers ahead. That's right, this is your official spoiler alert. The film follows our title character, Elvis Presley, from his childhood in Mississippi, all the way to his gaining fame in Memphis, Tennessee, to his eventual reign in Las Vegas, Nevada, and all the fun stuff in between. Directed by Baz Luhrmann, with previous work like Moulin Rouge and The Great Gatsby, both being extremely high budget and very over the top and very stylized kind of movies, it matches almost perfectly with the story of Elvis Presley. Being that it is kind of the story of music's very first rock star, Baz does a phenomenal job. I mean, that is probably one of the best parts of this movie, is any time that Elvis Presley is performing on stage. The movie clocks in at about just under 3 hours, 2 hours and 40 minutes to be exact. It is a little bit long, and it's due to there is a lot of music in the movie, and there's a lot of musical performances, which is what I think stretches out the time a little bit. But it is hands down probably the best part of the entire movie, is any time Austin Butler is up on stage as Elvis Presley. He gives a phenomenal performance. I have nothing bad at all to say about Austin Butler portraying Elvis Presley. Doing a little research, it turns out that he did sing all of it himself. The early years of Elvis, it is 100% Austin Butler singing, and he does a fantastic job. There's also a clip that kind of went around the internet early in production. There was some test footage of him singing a Elvis Presley song with a guitar, and he's just kind of soloing it up, and he kills it, just totally a-cappella-ing it up. He has a great kind of southern drawl that Elvis has. I believe later in the film they do a little mix of like his voice and older Elvis together. So later in the film you get a little blending of the voice, but early it's just pure Austin Butler, and he does a fantastic job singing. Austin Butler, given the challenge of not only having to imitate Elvis Presley's voice, but also having to imitate his stage presence, which he does an amazing job as. I'm telling you, you might as well be front row for a Elvis Presley show. This movie does a great job. Baz does an amazing job of really putting you right there center row for an Elvis Presley show. I mean, it's probably as close as anyone will ever get to seeing what it was like to see Elvis. And Baz Luhrmann does a great job of turning all of us basically into screaming teenage girls. Not only is Austin Butler killing it and giving all that energy into the performance, Baz does a great job of capturing all that energy and really transferring it onto the screen so that you do feel that you're there. You feel the energy of Elvis. And that wild, stylized format works well when it's in a concert format like up on stage, but there are times when Colonel Tom Parker is just doing like simple narrating, and like the transitions are flying in and out of his like pupils and like through Vegas and like flipping the whole screen upside down and sideways and zooming, and it's very jerky and very fast, and like it really catches you off guard. So in a way, yeah, great stylized format when it's up on the concert stage and like the music and everything, and it's just like looks amazing, but then also very like jerky and like kind of like takes you out of it when it's just like you're trying to keep up with the narration of the story and you're flying back and forth and all over the place, and you've got old man Tom Cruise, but then we're back in the past and now we're in the present, and it's just like very, very jerky. And not only is the narration of the story jumping back and forth, there's also lots of like gaps that are just never filled in and like never even like looked back at all. Like they start going a little bit into Tom Parker's like backstory and back life, and like, hey man, you don't have a passport, and like who even are you, like before you moved to America? And it's just like, oh, and we forget about all that. And then we got other stuff too, like Elvis meeting his wife. It's just like, he just met her, like, whatever. And then like he has some kids, but you never really see the kids, and he's just like, he's always talking about how much like I miss my kids, and I'm never seeing them because I'm here in Vegas, and it's like I never even see these kids in the movie. Like I didn't even know, wouldn't have even known you had kids until you mentioned how much you miss them. The costume work on this movie is really great. There's like all of his outfits are amazing. They go through this great transition when he's like in his Vegas years of like all the different capes and stuff that he'd be wearing. Like, it's just great. The pink Cadillac, fucking killer. Set design and costume design are all on point. Glasses, like suits, all this stuff is just looking phenomenal. Overall, it is very interesting. Do they touch on every aspect of Elvis's life? No. Is it weird that they skip over certain things with a 3-hour movie? Sure. Do they cover the basics of like what you need to get the gist of Elvis? Yeah, of course. I mean, you get the growing up stuff in Elvis, you get the kind of getting famous stuff, you get the stealing all that black culture stuff, and then of course you get, you're finally famous in Vegas stuff, but it's like, it feels very surface level, kind of like, we don't go too deep into like all that stuff. Stealing all this music from black people, like, we'll just kind of gloss over that a little bit. Let's get to the Hey Viva Las Vegas. So let's go ahead and hit Elvis with our overall rating. Although the story does cover most of Elvis's lives, it feels like I'm left wanting more. Like, I feel like there were certain things that were skipped over or glossed over that don't go as deep into, that would have been fun to explore and learn more about Elvis. As far as acting, Austin Butler, amazing. I mean, anytime Elvis is up on stage performing, literally my eyes were glued to the screen. Like, it's like you're there in the seat watching a live Elvis concert, or at least a live Elvis impersonator concert at Vegas or something, and he kills it. He blows the roof off the house, man. It's great. He shuts it down. It's amazing. Tom Hanks there supporting as well. Is it his greatest performance ever? No, definitely not. Does it have vibes of just like, I don't know, kind of just phoning it at certain points? Yeah. Is it his worst acting? Absolutely not. I mean, I feel like he's right down the middle. Other things too I would have loved to see. I mean, they make a big deal that B.B. King is in there, but then you don't really get to see B.B. King play. Like, it would have been cool to see, him play a little bit. There is a little bit like Little Richard stuff, which was actually pretty cool. It was actually cool to see that guy do like a Little Richard impersonation. That kind of stuff is cool. Is it the most well-told story? No, maybe not. Is it the most original? I don't think so either. I mean, the whole time it's like that vibe of like, we've seen this movie before, right? We've seen the Johnny Cash one. There's a Jerry Lee Lewis one. We've seen, I think there is a Little Richard one. We've seen Walk Hard with Dewey Cox. So it's got that thing where it's like we've seen it, right? It's tough to make a new version of that movie that's already been made, even though it is technically like, I don't know, you could call Elvis like one of the original or like the greatest one of them all. And with a runtime as long as almost 3 hours, you'd think that there'd be a little bit more detail in like his life and backstory, but somehow it feels like a lot of it gets glossed over. And also Tom Hanks' performance, although not the worst performance ever, definitely not his grade A homework. He's coming in kind of feeling this very average. But having said all that, I'm telling you, Austin Butler up on stage as Elvis is unmatched. It's really phenomenal. It's really great to see. If you are even the smallest little bit of an Elvis fan or just a rock and roll fan in general, I'm sure you'll enjoy all the concert footage. So I'm thinking we're going to go ahead and hit Elvis with a C. That's right, solid C right in the middle. Yeah, it's got some faults to it. Yeah, there's some really great stuff as well, and together that balances out to a very average movie. Thank you so much for stopping by for another episode of Dafuq. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It definitely helps us out, and feel free to comment any movies or television shows that you'd like us to review here. I am your host, as always, Kyle McLemore, and we'll see you next time on Dafuq.